The Russia Ukraine crisis is not looking to cease anytime soon. Questions are being asked. Is it a testament to the Russian superpower, the military strength it is known for even after the 1990 fall of the USSR? Is it the resilience of the NATO, which has not been directly involved in the conflict, at least in Ukraine, but it has been backing Ukraine's interests? Is it a testament to the US intelligence at play? Is it a testament to what the Chinese have been doing to aid the Russians? A lot of questions are being asked. And in this whole churn, the question is being asked is the main question that is what is the new world order? And what has China to do with this new world order? These are the two important questions we're looking to address today. Now, the first question is America's foreign policy with respect to Russia, with respect to China. If you look at the Republicans under Donald J. Trump, President Trump, an eccentric personality, he was the first one to call out the dumping practices of China, the unfair trade practices, the IP theft, which cost the Americans billions and billions of dollars. He was the first one to point that out. And what ushered was a trade war. You had the trade war, you had the tariffs, shots were fired either way, diplomatically, politically, sanctions were also placed. But at the end, the US was the one which suffered more because of the trade war, because of the tariffs being high, and consequently, the products costing more than they should have. That was the Republican era. Now, in 2020, Joe Biden takes over. People expect a different kind of a regime when it comes to China. People expect a different kind of foreign policy when it comes to Russia. But if you look at the Republicans and Democrats today, and this is very important on how we define the New World Order. If you look at the Republicans on one hand, they realize that the Cold War bipolar order is not going to serve today's geopolitical realities. It's just not going to work. If you look at the Democrats, however, they are still in that Cold War era. They still look to find validation in the NATO arrangement. They still look to find a reason to expand the NATO at the borders of Russia. Now, is that right or wrong? That's a subject for a different debate. But that's how the Democrats think. So, consequently, the Republicans are more focused on China, less focused on Russia. The Democrats, on the other hand, are more focused on Russia, less focused on China. So at the same time, Democrats think that the Republicans have been bought out by the Russians. The Republicans think that the Democrats want to appease the Chinese. That is the foreign policy that is going on right now in the United States. And this is dangerous for one simple reason. Is China a bigger threat than the Chinese? Absolutely not. Look at the strength of the economy to begin with. Russia is a smaller economy than India, and Chinese is a huge, huge economy. The concerns that were raised by President Trump were actually far more legitimate, relevant to today's realities than what Joe Biden is raising right now. However, that's the problem with the American foreign policy. Now, Russia invaded Ukraine. Sanctions after sanctions were placed, so much that some European companies had to start worrying how to go about their energy reserves. Germany, as you might have noticed just earlier this week, has started rationing its gas because they are heavily dependent on the Russian energy supplies. At the same time, all the Western big tech companies and other smaller companies have also quit Russia. You look at Apple, you look at Instagram, you look at Meta. Meta has been described as a terrorist organization by the Russian government at this point. You look at Twitter. So there has been an exodus of companies which has been inspired by the White House, of course, from Russia. Now, if you compare this with the 2020 pandemic that had its origins in China, we've almost forgotten about it that there was a thing called Wuhan virus. Look at the contrast here. Russia invades Ukraine and there is a geopolitical angle to it. Every company leaves Russia. Every sanction is there for Russia. Europe is told that you cannot import energy from Russia even at your own cost. India is told that it would be unfair to import oil from Russia even at a cheaper cost, even if it hurts our growth. But at the same time, when it comes to China, there are big tech companies, the likes of Instagram, the likes of Meta, the likes of Microsoft, even Apple, for instance, they are lobbying for China in the White House. But at the Russian question, they all are ready for the exodus. So this contrast is also very, very important because this only proves that as much as Americans may want to appeal to the Chinese conscious when it comes to Russia, they cannot decouple. They couldn't even decouple when the pandemic killed so many people, thousands and thousands of families were devastated by the pandemic in America, and yet the companies are lobbying for China. That's how it works. The third question is it now a bipolar world order or is it a multipolar world order? That's the very important question. And this brings us back to the question of decoupling. Now, in a bipolar world order, let's say the one before the 1990s, America would have asked China that either you cut ties with Russia or we stop the tech transfer to your company, we stop the investments. And in the 1990s, Chinese were heavily, heavily dependent on the US when it came to their investments, when it came to the technology transfer. But today, Americans can appeal as much as they want to the Europeans or the Chinese or even India for that matter. Every political bloc, every geopolitical bloc rather, is looking at their own interests. Indians have factored in the oil at 70 to $75 a barrel. So clearly 110, 120, even 150 hurts our interest, hurts our economic interest. Europe, you can easily say that, oh, Europe should stop its energy dependency on Russia. It should switch to renewables. Renewables are the future. But these switches are not overnight. You cannot transform the entire energy ecosystem overnight. Companies like Germany, countries like Germany, countries like France, United Kingdom, even for that matter, are dependent on Russia. So even the Europeans have been hesitant on cutting ties completely from Russia. Even they are hesitant about the whole discussion about the Nord 2 Stream pipeline, about the Nord pipeline, about the whole energy transfer. Look at China. Now, the Russian Chinese axis is stronger than before. So, again, is this now a bipolar world order? Absolutely not. And this is something our foreign minister, external affairs minister, Dr. Jaishankar, has emphasized since the day he's taken office that we are no longer in a bipolar world order. It would be a multipolar world order where countries engage with each other in a more bilateral fashion. There would be bilateral arrangements between different countries, but at the same time, there would be multipolar geopolitical blocs serving their own interests. So there you will have a Europe looking after its own interests while balancing Russia and America. You'll have an India looking at its own interests while balancing Russia and America. You'll have America serving its own interests while balancing India and China. Rest assured, even if the quad reality comes true, it doesn't signify that America would decouple from China just to serve Indian and Japanese and Australian interests. So this is the multipolar world order we are talking about. Now, what would China's place be in this multipolar world? That is the big question now. That is the new world order, the multipolar world order. What is China's place? It's, of course, the center of the whole supply chains. We looked after the pandemic. A lot of companies were saying, we want to move out of China, we want to move to India, we want to move to Vietnam. Japan, in fact, was incentivizing companies that wanted to move out of China back to Japan. Europeans were having second thoughts about the supply chain, manufacturing, and the investments Chinese had in their region. America, for the same reasons. And of course, there have been consequences. There have been some companies which have been looking to diversify out of China. But is China's place in the multipolar world threatened because of the pandemic or because they side with Russia in this conflict? Absolutely not. Russia and China, the axis is only going to go strong. I'll put a link in the description, an article I wrote about how the Russian Chinese axis will evolve. I do recommend you read that on swarajyamac.com. But at the same time, this conflict, this whole American Russian conflict, would only benefit the Chinese. At the end of the day, China cannot be decoupled from by the Americans. China is drawing closer to Russia. There is a talk of trade in rubles. China depends on Russia for the Arctic access. It depends on them for coal. It depends on them for oil. It depends on them for energy. So there's no question of Russia and China decoupling from each other. So where does it lead to? America can't leave China. Russia won't leave China. China won't leave Europe. And where does it leave China in the New World Order then? It leaves them more stronger. Now, a stronger China raises important question. That is another crisis brewing in the Taiwanese peninsula. That's what everyone is asking. Now, there are two extremes to it. One say that the Taiwan invasion is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of when, not of if. That's the one extreme. Fair point. The other extreme says is that the Chinese wouldn't go for a military conflict as Russia has done in Ukraine. Perhaps they would have learned their lesson. Perhaps they wouldn't want a prolonged conflict. So they might go for a political rearrangement, a political churn within the Taiwan country. And that is how they would like to politically integrate Taiwan back into China. These are the two extremes. But whatever the results might be, today, if Ukraine crisis poses a supply chain threat, poses an inflation threat, which is very evident in India and America, inflation is a real problem. The Taiwan threat would actually put the entire supply chain ecosystem across the world into a perilous danger because of the semiconductor question, because of the whole geography of the region. And that is what people are now looking at and for the future. That one, China's place in the new world order is far more stronger than it would have been, say, under a Republican regime. And two, where does it lead us in Taiwan? These are the two questions now everyone is asking. Now, what are the lessons for India here? India has now suddenly become the geopolitical destination of the world. We have the Russian foreign minister coming to India. We had the Chinese foreign minister here a couple of days ago. Dr. Jaishankar has been a busy man, but he has been proven right. The lessons here are we have to watch Russia, we have to observe China, but we have to brace for Atmanirbharta in a multipolar world where India keeps its economic and strategic interests first. This is where we should draw a leaf out of the Chinese book. Thank you for now.